Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to another Quran study today. God willing, we'll be reading from Surah 42, Consultation, starting at verse 41. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Certainly those who stand up for their rights when injustice befalls them are not committing any error. The wrong ones are those who treat the people unjustly and resort to aggression without provocation. These have incurred a painful retribution. Resorting to patience and forgiveness reflects a true strength of character. So looking at these verses, it's we commit no error as submitters when we stand up for our rights. But having said that, on the same token, we're told, there's a way, to go about it. We don't want to, we want to remain composed, right? Now, if, gross injustice, as it was discussed, befalls somebody, there's even another part of the Quran that discusses, the use of language, and that, bad language is God willing, I can find the verse, but it's okay, because it's in response to the gross injustice. But people who are people who treat the people unjustly, right? That haven't been provoked and are resorting to aggression, or any type of violence, aggression, even be it verbally, without being provoked. That's the wrong way to go about it. Okay, thank you, brother. So yeah, brother Abdullah just shared the verse is in Surah 4, verse 148. It says, God does not like the utterance of bad language unless one is treated unless one is treated with gross injustice. God is here and nowhere. So we shouldn't, utter, bad language and any profanity. However, if faced with a circumstance or situation where there's a gross injustice, it's God pardons that, because it's it's okay. But we can see in verse 43, resorting to patience and forgiveness reflects the true strength of character. So this is not always easy to do, but it's something as submitters we should really strive for, and be mindful about too. And we also have to make sure, like, the injustice, what we're looking at as injustice is injustice, like it was, and not let ourselves, not let ourselves, or trick ourselves into thinking that, treating this situation, a person is okay, when it wasn't, when it wasn't really injustice to begin with, so, God, we have common sense and stuff, and God will help us see every situation accordingly. But there could be people out there that look at these verses and try to justify being mean to somebody, or even responding in a worse type of manner, just because they somehow convince themselves that this was injustice, but that's where we have to check, make sure we're analyzing the situation correctly. Like as I brought it up in the last study, I had a question, and, not looking for excuses or reasons for a certain situation to, go and infringe upon that, Now if it's by error or something, or by accident, you don't know, and then you're, enlightened or given more information, and you can repent and stuff, But we can see here that patience and forgiveness is what, it's all throughout the Quran. These are the traits that we really have to strive for, because it's not always easy, and that's why it reflects his true strength of character. Because it's easy to lose your temper, or get emotional. It's very easy, and we see that is the case with a lot of people. But remaining calm and cordial, and still responding to people amicably is better for us, and it helps us. It strengthens us. In the same manner. 44. Whomever God sends astray will never find any other Lord, and you will see such transgressors when they see the retribution, saying, "Can we get another chance?" Sorry. You will see them facing it, humiliated and debased, and looking, yet trying to avoid looking. Those who believe will proclaim the real losers are those who lost their souls and their families on the day of resurrection. The transgressors have deserved an everlasting retribution. So, you can, this is what's going to be said. This is what's going to be said on the day of judgment. And possibly, I guess, looking at the verse, you could also, because we know at the time of death with disbelievers, they are going to witness hell, which is their retribution. So possibly they could be saying this at the time of death as well. And of course on the day of judgment too, because, when hell is presented, we're told, they're going to, all through the Quran we can see how they're going to respond. And, looking on, we can see that, the people who make it, or are fortunate enough to make it, believe, proclaim the real losers are those who lost their souls and their families on the day of resurrection. The transgressors have deserved an everlasting retribution. So, this is the real loss. People tend to get upset over losing material things or worldly things, even in the sense of losing a loved one, that simply moves on from this world to the next. And in reality, that's not the real loss. People, because a lot of people turn into disbelievers when this happens, or I've seen it. I just was talking with somebody a few weeks ago. They disbelieve in God after something bad happened to their father. I think ended up in prison, and she was telling me that just blaming God, making excuses and stuff, and they fail to realize that what happens to people is really a consequence of their work. But on a deeper note, it's that's not even a loss in the sense of what the real loss is, and losing your family on the day of resurrection, because you're like the Quran says, a father can't help his son, a son can't help his father, so they lose their families, they lose their souls, so whatever family ties they have here, the transgressors aren't going to be able to help one another. They're completely lost. They've lost their own souls as well as their families, and so we don't want to be with those people. May God help us. 46, there will be no allies to help them against God. Whomever God sends astray can never be guided. So there's no one, to help. anyone. Despite people tend to you know operate in this world like even if they have a lot of quote unquote power or influence and a lot of friends and stuff, in quote unquote high places, that's they're not gonna have any of that in the next life in hell. There's nothing that people can do, but they're oblivious to this fact though. They don't care, the disbelievers. So whether you try to warn these people or invite them publicly, privately, if God wills to send somebody astray, they can never be guided. But it's also important to note that God is the knower, so we have to do our best as submitters to enlighten and help others, and by doing so, we're helping ourselves too. When we invite somebody, and even if their response isn't the best, we still have to maintain good composure and continue to pardon, forget, forgive, and move on. And we have to do our part, because God could end up helping these people, further down the line. That is, as it's pointed out in the end of Surah 60, unless they're hopelessly stuck in their disbelief, and this, this is made known to submitters with enough time and stuff. That's something that, they themselves will make it known, as well as God will show you things, with time. And so you have to make the right decision and regarding your relations with this person, lest you end up like them. So that's the whole idea, is like you don't want to befriend these people who are after that are destined for retribution, and it's not something easy to do either. But you have to it's a decision you have to make at some point. As we're told in Surah 58, I think towards the end of 58, and about you won't find people who believe in God in the last day and God's messenger befriending these types of people, even if they're among their own family. But at the same token, we have to not be hasty in our judgment calls. We have to really give it time and ask God to help us, and He'll show us, and He'll help us come to the best and correct decision. You shall respond to your Lord before a day comes, which is decreed inevitable by God. There will be no refuge for you on that day, nor an advocate. Sole mission of the messenger: if they turn away, we do not send you as their guardian. Your sole mission is delivering the message. When we shower the human beings with mercy, they become proud, and when adversity afflicts them as a consequence of their own deeds, the human beings turn into disbelievers. So yeah, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier. I'm sure we've all seen this with people that could be people we've grown up around, could be friends, family, or just people we get to know through work or through different places we go to, or environments we're in, and we can see when adversity afflicts people, or even their friends or family, as a result of something they've done, they get mad and they blame God, which is very ignorant, and they fail to understand the role of why these things, why bad things happen to these people. They don't understand Satan's role. So it's our job. We can, try to remind these people, and by doing so, we also strengthen our own faith, and we help ourselves. We're not doing it. We're doing it for them, and as well as for our own soul. As God tells us, you shall remind with this Quran, lest the soul suffers the consequences of its evil's earnings. So I think that's in Surah 6. But and if we can see from Surah 47, this day is certainly coming. It's the most serious matter that we have, and so that's why, any chance we get to talk to people or even help them, not being compulsive at all, but as God tells us how to be and how to remind people, it's in our best interest to do this, because if we were in their shoes, of course, in retrospect, we would want, not knowing, we would, in retrospect, looking back, we would want somebody to, maybe talk to us or slowly, each individual is different, but slowly remind us and stuff. So this is important. And every situation and person is different, of course, but there's no refuge for anybody on that day, nor an advocate, so we can see that God still showers people, the human beings, with mercy, and we can see it's in the human being's nature, right, to become proud when adversity afflicts them. And then in other parts of the Quran, they attribute, after they implore God, they go back to worshiping idols, or even there's situations where they claim that they solve their own problems through their own cleverness, along that lines, God is telling us about about the nature, because he doesn't really say that it's the disbelievers. He's saying the human beings, which this is in like the messenger had pointed out, being a submitter is really an exception to the rule, because if you look back at our initial crime, we were all the rebels. We were really terrible, committing that horrendous crime and not appreciating God's greatness, really being ungrateful for his awesomeness and greatness, and blaspheming. And so to be a submitter in this world is really the exception, so thank God for that, and may God continue to help us stay on the right track. Verse 49, to God belongs the sovereignty of the heavens and the earth. He creates whatever he wills, granting daughters to whomever he wills, and granting sons to whomever he wills. Or he may have the males and the females marry each other, then render whomever he wills sterile. He is omniscient, omnipotent. So all sovereignty belongs to God in the heavens and the earth. And whatever little tidbit of sovereignty or that God may bestow upon somebody is only because of God. And like the Quran says, any dignity that to God belongs all dignity, and he's the one who, I'm paraphrasing, but he's the one who bestows dignity on whoever he wills and removes dignity on whoever he wills. So he's the omniscient, the omnipotent. Whatever he wills is done. So how God communicates with us. No human being can communicate with God except through inspiration or from behind a barrier, or by sending a messenger through whom he reveals what he wills. He is the Most High, the Most Wise. So, this is very important, and this is why it's such a blessing to have the messenger of the covenant, because it's kind of like, like it was, like you can put it in the sense where knowing that he's a messenger, and you're giving medication, if it's just from a human being if you not knowing he's a messenger or not, you don't know if the medication you're getting is actually working, or it's like or if he's a witch doctor, or this was an example, like I think he was talking about, or if it's the medication working, or what exactly is it. But once he tells you, like, like, no, I'm an actual certified doctor. Here's the credentials and the proofs. Okay, everything you get from this person from now on is gonna be, perfect, enlightened, clarifying. Is gonna be full of wisdom, and so you can rest assured. Whatever you're being told is the truth. So that's how God, helps us and how He communicates with us, as we're told here, through inspiration. And this isn't to say that, like these false preachers and messengers, pastors, prophets, apostles, they're throwing around the word prophet and prophetess like it's bird feed or something. It's so prevalent. They're using it so loosely, everybody, and they just take a few, they distort a few verses out the Bible and they run with it. They just take a few little things and then they just completely run with it. They really create an entire new sect of Christianity, and they're all fighting amongst each other. And that's not what And they get up on stage and they just say, "Oh, they talked with God today," and that's not what this is. This is they're obviously lying. They don't have direct communication with God like they claim. But let's say God, inspires us to, let's say, reform or get on the right track, or let's say before we were submitters, to stop doing this and repent, reform, start doing our prayers, open our hearts to submission. That inspiration is from God. So and also by the sending of a messenger too. He reveals with what He wills. And so we have certain secret information that was divinely guarded for 1,400 years that we have from the Quran, like the end of the world, the age of 40, and a lot of other clarifying matters about also about the great feud in the heavenly society. So, this is stuff to be This is stuff to appreciate and thank God for. Thus we inspire to your revelation, proclaiming our commandments. You had no idea about the scripture or faith. Yet we made this a beacon to guide whomever we choose from among our servants. Surely you guide in the straight path. So, I believe this is talking to Muhammad, at the time, because there was people who the rejectors and the transgressors and the human devils who were trying to accuse Muhammad of knowing about the previous scriptures, or like the stories of Noah, or whatever the case would be. But actually, he had no idea about any of this, and this is mentioned in other parts of the Quran. And so, God be glorified. This is a proof in of itself, that he was inspired and given the Quran. And this is, of course, this Quran is a beacon to guide whoever wants to be guided, and it's, God guides in a straight path, so if somebody decides to want to have everything to do with God, then God will help them. But if somebody decides to not want to have anything to do with God, God will help them in that decision. But you see, ultimately, that person made that decision. So and they have absolute freedom of choice, as we're told. So there's no blame on the day of judgment. They, like the transgressors and idolaters, try to say, if our Lord will, we would not have worshipped idols. It's actually wrong, because we have absolute freedom of choice to choose to worship Jesus or Muhammad or our own ego or some helpless human being. It could be anybody. It could be if we're committing, we commit idol worship even if we think other people have power to help us, or harm us in any way. And this is something we have to. Why it's so important to, as it was mentioned in the most important sermon the messenger gave about God is doing everything, and it's something we have to really stay on ourselves and, stay on each other too and help us, and remind, that's what the submitters do for each other. We remind each other and we help each other, that we can be saved, because, excuse me, the path of God, to whom belongs everything in the heavens and everything on earth. Absolutely all matters are controlled by God, so this means, and if God is doing everything, all matters. So the matter of a mosquito coming to land on the tip of your ear and biting you, the matter of a single raindrop that, hits you on your arm in a certain position. That's a matter. So all these matters, we're told, are controlled by God, So, the matter of somebody waving at you or somebody making a face at you or something, So all of that's, everything's controlled by God. God is running everything. So, this is, the more we can work on ourselves and solidify this truth in us as submitters, the stronger we'll get, and the happier we'll be, because we won't find objection to anything happening around us. And if situations present themselves, we'll respond in the best type of manner. We'll do what we can do, our part, but always remembering, making God our God is the most important objective. Surah 43 ornaments, al-Zukruf, if I'm saying that right. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. HM and the enlightening scripture. So subhanallah, this has a footnote. So see footnote 41. The frequency of occurrence of the letters H, Ha, and M, Meme in the 7 HM initial surahs is 292 and 1855 respectively. Subhanallah. So this adds up to 2147, or 19 times 113. So the amount of H's, and so all the HM initial surahs, so if we take surah 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, and we count all the H's, that's 292, right? And then if we take all the M's and 40 through 46, we're doing 40 through 46 because these are all the HM initial surahs, remember? That's 1855, and if you add that up, that's a multiple of 19. So just if one extra word was accidentally said, I don't know Arabic, but I can imagine how easy it would be. If you just say one extra word or half a sentence extra in any one of these verses through the surahs, the whole thing would collapse. And then expounding upon that, so this HM right here, and further into the miracle, looking into it, there's other elements where it gets even more intricate. So other parts of it would break. It's so delicately perfect that it could have only come from God. There was no way it could have been from a human being. But even just on this HM, subhanallah, that alone, the HM and the number of, right here, the number of times the word God occurs in the Quran, and the number of verses, numbers, that alone, was enough. So he makes this really easy for us to appreciate and stuff, because when you really think about, and let's say you put yourself up to the task, which obviously we can't do it, but just to, if people try to challenge this and you ask them, or you put them and theorize for them to try to even accomplish something like this, and you start thinking it, and you think about it's a monumental task that's basically impossible, or not basically, it is impossible. Even today, it's, you can really appreciate and start to see, the awesomeness of this miracle. Verse 3, we have rendered it an Arabic Quran that you may understand. So as a footnote, Arabic is the most efficient language, especially in expressing commandments, statutes, and exacting laws. Hence the revelation of the Quran in Arabic for the clear understanding of all peoples regardless of their tongue. See Appendix 4 for the details. SubhanAllah. So, this was all, we can see all this is directly, it's perfect. It's like perfectly planned. There's, we can see this not just by accident that it's in Arabic either, one of the, I believe is one of the three Semitic languages is Arabic, Hebrew, and Aramaic, I believe, are the three Semitic languages that are all, have all like a geometrical or numerical value assigned to them. But, God be glorified, so, we're told exactly right here, it's an Arabic Quran that you may understand. So we're told here there's no like, convolution, if that's the right word for what I'm trying to say. There's no like, vagueness or, this could mean this or this. No, subhanAllah, God makes it easy for us and chose Arabic. It's especially awesome because, when you're expressing commandments and laws, it's very important to know exactly what's being said, and we can see we have the authorized translation here for people who don't speak Arabic and, into English, mashallah. It is preserved with us in the original master, honorable and full of wisdom. So that's the original, master. I believe is referring, to the Quran that's with God. So it's honorable and full of wisdom. So really the Quran we have here, it's like, it's paper, or what we're reading is ink and paper and stuff. But if I'm explaining this right, the original master. The Quran is with God, that's why, so the original is still preserved, so even if people try to, say, or even touch the Quran, they can't, because, it's always been preserved with God, alhamdulillah. Should we just ignore the fact that you have transgressed the limits? The plan for redemption, we have sent many a prophet to the previous generations. So that this refers to our original sin as detailed in the introduction in Appendix 7. So verse 5 is very profound in the sense of letting us know, letting us know the mistake we made in the first life, and also, we see in the next verse how God's the most merciful and most gracious, and He's allowing us to come to this world and to be re-educated, and re-educate ourselves, and He's that we can be redeemed back into God's kingdom, because attaining His forgiveness is the best thing ever. It's better than owning anything on this earth. It's better than owning 1,000 or 100,000 earths, or even more than that, because none of that can save you, even if that was offered for ransom. It can't save you from the retribution. And so the forgiveness of God, who could create 100,000 earths or more than that, 1 million, the list goes on. He's the ultimate one that should be worshipped and focused on, the vast majority of our day and our subsequently our life. And so this is what we're here, is to re-educate ourselves, and we're going through the test, of course, due to our initial blasphemy, and that's what the transgressing the limits is referring to. And that's really the original sin. The original sin, as we were told in Genesis in the Bible, and we have to take it for not look to it for just look to it in the sense of like a reference if it's appropriate, like to when explaining verses of the Quran, because we have it's like if you're given a new automobile, a brand new one, there's no reason to go back to the old one that's has problems and has issues with it and stuff. No, you're gonna use the new one and drive one. I mean, imagine. And this is trying not to get off track here, but it's important to bring up because there's people that have been fall into this trap, and it can be easy. Satan can make these previous things appealing to you in the sense of you upholding religious laws and stuff that were never authorized by God from these previous scriptures, which obviously have been adulterated and infiltrated by the enemies of the prophets. So that's just I'm just pointing that out as a good reminder for us. Every time a prophet went to them, they ridiculed him. Consequently, we annihilated people who were even more powerful than these. We thus set the examples from the previous communities. So these people are always annihilated. That reject the prophets, which really they don't realize it, but they're fighting God, by. They may think they're just fighting the prophet or they're rejecting him, but they're actually fighting God, and they're not, whether they're aware of it or not. If you ask them who created the heavens and the earth, they would say the Almighty, the Omniscient has created them. He is the one who made the earth habitable for you and created for you roads therein that you may follow the right way. He is the one who sends down from the sky water in exact measure to revive dead lands therewith. Similarly, you will be resurrected. He is the one who created all kinds in pairs, male and female, and he created for you ships and livestock to ride. So these are all, mashallah, these are all things to be appreciated, be appreciative for. And even the water he sends down from the skies in exact measure. So even just a little bit of rainfall or a lot of rainfall or just like one raindrop that could hit us, which does happen, I think, sometimes, like you could be in an area and then you feel something from the sky and then it's just a raindrop, but it doesn't, I guess the precipitation and stuff keeps moving forward, or but everything is an exact measure, so that even that was controlled by God, and he does all kind of he gives us all kinds of things we implore him for. He provides for us, reviving the dead lands. Like where you could challenge people in a good manner, like where is Jesus? You're quoting that he's created. Who's taking care of the trees right now? Who's taking care of the squirrels or the prairie dogs and stuff in the ground? Like, who's feeding them? He's certainly not Jesus, because he's not even here right now. And I even asked that to somebody, and they didn't really have an answer. They just gave like this roundabout, like, oh, you have to have faith or something, and but they don't even really believe in what they're following too. They're just going with the crowd and going with the flow because everybody else around them is doing it. So and that's why we're told here. This is these are good verses, like to send people. I've sent people before, and it can make people think too. Even make submitters think and help remind us and be appreciative for them. As you rest on top of them, you shall appreciate such a blessing from your Lord and say, glory be to the one who subdued this for us. We could not have controlled them by ourselves. So yeah, riding horses and livestock, especially carrying like equipment and food and items and stuff with us is such a blessing. And even today, the most of us do not ride horses, but if you kind of want to think about it in a sense where we have like robotic versions or some, more, but it's all materials from the earth, the metal, the electricity that runs the car. I mean, that's controlled by God, the electricity, the physics, right, of the mechanics, the gears, the fluids and stuff that's in these vehicles, or planes, for that matter, or ships, all of that. The physics is designed by God. Subhanallah, all of this is he's put in our service. The flow of electricity, the metals, it's the structure, its purpose, its design. So these really, we can look at it that too, and then just coming back, going back to the house or going back to wherever, with groceries is such a blessing. Because imagine if we had to walk to the store and then load up everything in a bag, and we probably couldn't get everything we wanted because it would be way too heavy, and then having to walk all the way back, but God gives us so many nice things and so many blessings. And then plus, even today we can be more appreciative than, like, in a sense, because we're like enclosed, encapsulated in these high-tech machines that have air conditioner, or it has a radio and stuff we can listen to, like songs we can listen to worshiping about God. So these are all opportunities for us that submitters are going to be the wise ones that take these opportunities and use them to thank God and glorify God when they're driving. And where we can see, most people it's the same vehicle or same cell phone or whatever, but they're using it for really bad things, So that's part of the test too, is how are you gonna use your freedom of choice, and that's so these people won't have excuses, or they can't blame, oh, this device made me sin, or this vehicle, I ran it into this person's house, or something. Like, no, like, it's just not going to cut it. Okay, so we'll speed up real quick, and God willing, we ultimately return to our Lord. Angels as daughters of blasphemy. They even assign for him a share from his own creation. Surely the human being is profoundly unappreciative. Has he chosen from among his creations daughters for himself, while blessing you with sons? When one of them is given the news of a daughter that, as they claim, for the most gracious, his face is darkened with misery and anger, they say, what is good about an offspring that is brought up to be beautiful and cannot help in war? They claim that the angels who are servants of the most gracious are females. Have they witnessed their creation? Their claims are recorded, and they will be asked. So this is very ignorant, and really, it's ignoramus. It's they're being ignoramuses, and just not even thinking, because they themselves, how could they claim such a thing like the Quran is telling us, or asking the rhetorical question, have they witnessed their creation themselves? So we can see that wherever they get this from is it's a blasphemy too, and then it's really bad because they assign the angels as daughters to the most to God, as they claim for the most gracious, but when they themselves get a daughter, they're it's almost like it's, I don't know if I can explain it correctly, but it's really bad what they're doing, because it's like a hypocritical, it's hypocrisy in a way, because here they are assigning angels as daughters, but when they themselves get a daughter, they don't they don't want it, which is really bad. So as we're told, their claims are recorded, and they'll be asked about everything on the Day of Judgment. They even said, if the most gracious willed, we would not have worshipped them. They have no basis for such a claim, they only conjecture. Have we given them a book before this, and they're upholding it? Kind of, as I mentioned earlier, verse 20, just read the footnote real quick, and we'll end the teaching portion. The idol worshippers cannot blame God for idolatry, since we have absolute freedom of choice to worship God alone or not. So, this is there's not going to be any blame, because we're free creatures, and this was proven to us. It was also one of the things that the messenger had pointed out, that it's in the Quran, you know, that the eruption in the heavens with the great feud, you know, proves that you know, we're free creatures, and that we really have freedom in our decisions, and you know, so you know, so for people who don't fix the error and help themselves in this last precious chance in this life, you know, there's not going to be any blame on anybody but themselves for such a claim. You know, this claim about if God willed, they would not have worshipped Him. So with that said, if there's any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
MashaAllah, thank you, brother.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, yeah, I like how you compared the cars, you know, with the horses, and you know, because Subhanallah is very similar, you know, like God's it's still like the same thing, like you were explaining, like Subhanallah. You know, if God wanted to, He could have made the car just keep going and you can't stop. You know, MashaAllah.
Yeah, MashaAllah. Yeah, and He gives us, you know, all the, you know, the knowledge and stuff on how to. I mean, really, it's all coming from Him. It's not anything we can, you know, attribute to humans. You know, because any knowledge that people get is really God teaches them one way or another. And then plus, I mean, you know, even the physics and stuff that, and all of that's created by God. So I mean, we're already given so much of the, you know, the foundation and stuff, and you know, it's just ways to thank God and be appreciative.
Alhamdulillah, brother. Yeah, nicely explained.
Yeah, because even too, you know, I've thought about it. I mean, I think we've talked about it before, but like when I showed you a video, but it's like really we're living better. Like just the average human being is living far better and more elevated than like kings. You know, back in the medieval times, and I mean even the 1500s, 1700s. I mean they sweated, you know, they were sweating. I mean, they didn't have a lot of the, you know, all the amenities that we have today, and you know, like it's really no reason anybody can ever. If you just look at the life of these people, even the richest people on earth, I mean, like the average human being is living far better, and has than them. So it's you know, it. You know, for me, it puts things in perspective and helps me to be even more thankful. You know, just for like the small things and stuff. You know.
MashaAllah, right, brother. Also, verse 17 and verse 18, you know, they're talking about how they don't want daughters, but like, you know, like how they this you know, they just exposes the the lack of knowledge, and their ignorance, because like how are they gonna, produce, like they're having all this anger against a woman, and saying all these things, but God's plan is so divine, and um, these things need to be, so it just exposes, the ignorance, and like they're not thinking.
Yeah, that's a
It's
good
funny.
point. Yeah, that's a real good point. Very true. So I had a question. I think I might have forgotten, but in verse 51, uh, about communicating with God. So from behind a barrier, isn't that like, for example, like how Moses couldn't, communicate? I mean, like directly. I mean, God spoke to Moses directly. We're actually told that verbatim in the Quran, but from like behind a barrier, such as like the example of the burning bush. Is that what do y'all think? Is that what it's referring to in that way?
Inshallah, but that's how I understand it. I would say.
Okay, mashallah, brother Abdullah, what do you think? Yeah, brother Abdullah said yes, it could be. Yeah. Yeah, and it also shows it just like I had mentioned, it's people really cheapen themselves or cheapen their own souls. I'm talking about like the false messengers. I mean, obviously they're very evil people in the first place to be claiming this, but they're also, if you're claiming to be an apostle or prophet or prophetess, like you see this in Christianity a lot. And I mean, even a lot of Christians, from other denominations don't even accept that. Like, they look at that, the new apostolic reformation, that whole movement that has just, like, gotten bigger and more kind of disturbing. They reject that themselves, So, I mean, it's like God tells us they've been committed to animosity and hatred amongst each other until the day of resurrection. I forget the exact verse, but I had shared it before. And it's referring to the people of the scripture because they disregarded they disregarded what God has sent to them, So I mean, you see this, how God truly communicates with us, and it's through inspiration or from behind a barrier, like an example of Moses, or through sending a messenger, and the things he reveals with what he wills. And as we have the messenger of the covenant, which has been prophesied, in the Old Testament, New Testament, and is confirmed in this final testament.
MashaAllah, brother. And right after God says, from behind a barrier, he says, or by sending a messenger, to who he reveals who he was. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. So, are there any off-topic questions from anyone? MashaAllah, Brother Abdullah said, the example of angels you talked about, brother, is the same with idolatry. They're in a hypocritical behavior. They believe that the angels are daughters of God, and at the same time, they hate baby girls. Yeah, exactly. And God says they also would not elevate their servant, and that's in Surah 30, verse 28. He cites for you herein an example from among yourselves. Do you ever elevate your servants or subordinates to the level where they rival you, and to the point that you pay them as much allegiance as being paid to you? We thus explain the revelations for people who understand. Yeah, mashallah. That's a really good verse too to reflect on and tie into this one, because it's here they are, being assigning angels to God and the most gracious, but when it comes, assigning angels as daughters, when it comes to them getting a daughter, it's like they're hypocrites and they don't want it, and they go as far as to being miserable and angry, as it says in verse 17. Yeah, because it's like you would think that, if they were really, we know they don't have insincerity, but if they're even like had a tiny bit of sincerity, they wouldn't, the fact that they would assign the angels as daughters, they would actually want daughters themselves, because wouldn't, you would think that wouldn't they assign like their favorite or their most sought after or favorite or best offspring to wouldn't they make that as angels as they're assigning it blasphemously? But we see that's not the case, so it just shows that how bad these people are. Yeah, exactly. They would not share, like Abdullah said, they would not share their powers in this world, but they want God to do this. Exactly. So they're so bad. I wonder if there's still people, today too, that do this. I'm not sure if there could be religious sects that do this still. I'm not sure. it even reminds me of the verse where I forget exactly how it goes, but they assign the crops. You know, the idol worshippers, they set aside just like a little bit of crops for God, and then they give like their idols most of the stuff, and then they end up reverting, I believe, and they don't even, when it comes time for harvest or something, I'm paraphrasing, they end up don't even, they just dedicate the little bit there they're gonna give to God to their idols, you know. So it's very, very bad. So if there's no other comments or questions from anybody, we can conclude the study, God willing. Okay, so thank you all for joining. God bless, and next study will be on Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and 11 a.m. Central time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.